Welcome to the talk show, Lighting the Educational Flame, with your host, Mark Hoberman. The goal of this show is to provide a learning experience to people of all ages, with guests from various fields and academics, a wide range of industries, and insight into the many forms of art, athletics, and entertainment. We hope you enjoy the show. British actor and television presenter Andrew Lynford is our special guest tonight. Andrew does it all. He'll be talking about his passion for acting and directing and sharing many of his exciting experiences with us.
Hello and welcome to the talk show Lighting the Educational Flame with Mark Hoberman. The show is brought to you by Great Success Education. Today's guest will be actor, casting director, and writer Andrew Lynford. Let's bring him on.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
Our pleasure. Andrew, you're involved in so many various parts of the entertainment industry, but what was the journey that got you to where you are today?
That's quite a big question. Yeah. And I suppose the kind of starting point to work back from, if that makes sense, is Here I am, a Brit, and I've been in Los Angeles for 6 years. Currently, I'm here working predominantly in casting. I'm a casting director. But I came here really by default, in the same way that I got into casting by accident, really. I was directing and writing, mostly for the theatre, and using casting directors in London. And several of those became good friends. Debbie O'Brien became a particularly close friend, and she was casting shows that I was directing or writing, or at least working on. And I started being an associate for her. When I was filling in between jobs, found I liked it, meant I didn't have to travel away from home so much. And then casting kind of took over. So when I came here 6 years ago, I continued to pursue casting, and it's been pretty good here for me since then. But really, back in my early days and how I started, to answer your question, is I always wanted to be an actor. From the moment I did the school play, I'm the classic textbook, did the school play, found I liked people laughing and applauding and thought, oh, I like this. Although I was academic at school, and my father was a teacher of mathematics, and so he always said you can pursue it as long as you get your exams and qualifications. And back in those days, you know, the real route in, and the only route in the UK, was to go to drama school. And do your 3 years training at a recognised school, and then set foot into the business, which is what I did. I went to Mountview Theatre School, which some people know, some people don't. It's part of the National Council of Drama Training, which RADA, Lambda, all the big schools over there are on. Mountview was really moving forward as a musical theatre college at the time, and I, believe it or not, back in the day, I got in on a singing scholarship because I could hold a tune. As my friend used to say, yes, you can hold a tune in a bucket. And I was like, well, that's good.
Better than nothing.
Better than nothing. And I really wanted to be in musical theatre. And when I left drama school, I was auditioning for all the big West End shows. Remember, this was like early 90s. So it was the age of the big musical. It was Les Mis and Miss Saigon and all those shows. In fact, the first big show that I auditioned for, that I got through lots of callbacks and then ultimately didn't get, was Kiss of the Spider Woman. Chita Rivera was in London doing Kiss of the Spider Woman, and they were recasting with a British cast because the Americans were going to go back home, having opened it. I think they'd done 6 months or something. And I got, I don't know, first, second, third, fourth, fifth recall and didn't get it. But in my last one, I got to sing for Hal Prince. So it wasn't bad for someone who wanted to leave drama school and go to musical theatre. And I didn't really care I didn't get it, because he was very charming and very lovely and told me how great I was, and I wasn't going to get the job. So I said, thanks very much. Right. But that was my route. And then, you know, I didn't get the West End jobs straight away. So I started writing to regional theatre, you know, what we would call repertory theatre, but kind of summer stock and touring, and really started from the bottom and worked my way up. I did small parts, I did Christmas shows, I did pantomime, you know, which is a big kind of career starter for people in the UK a lot of the time. And regional shows, rep theatre, I did through casting in seasons, where I played the small part of the policeman in the Agatha Christie, and then I stayed on to play the larger role in the Neil Simon play or whatever. And you know, it's the old adage, but I really learnt my craft when I left college and started doing those jobs, and that led to television roles. And of course, I had an agent all this time who was working very hard for me. I was very blessed in that respect. And I feel like everything progressed very well. You know, it kind of moved from this role to that role. And I presented children's television for a while in my early 20s, and I felt ready to do that. And then I had more experience on camera. And so that led to the next thing. And then I got bigger roles on television, and some of the bigger roles then really continue to shape my career even today, because the bunch of people that were at the BBC at that time, you know, move on to be producers, writers, directors whose paths I cross here, because people are out here doing things, you know. So that was a very long answer to a very short.
Well, it's a very long career, and it's, you know, look, it's not like you're just getting started and you have so much, so many accomplishments behind you. But I do want to work backwards a little bit. But it's interesting because probably over 25 years ago, maybe more, my wife and I went to London, and that's where I saw Miss Saigon. I mean, I'm from New York originally, as if you can't tell by my accent.
Certainly can.
But we saw, you know, Les Mis and those things on Broadway. But Miss Saigon we saw in London, so it was just tremendous. But I do want to work it a little bit backwards with you, because you mentioned casting director. I know you started with acting first, and I love that you talk about, you know, learning a craft, and it's not just, it's the on-the-job training where the magic comes in. You get kind of prepared in the academic setting, so to speak, and then you go out there and it's the school of hard knocks. But what can you tell us about the life or the responsibilities of a casting director that most people probably don't know? They think a casting director, you sit at a table with 4 people. Who's next? No. Oh, he looks good. What are some of these ins and outs that people just don't know?
Well, that's a big question, big question to answer. But I think, to begin with, picking up on what we've just talked about, I think I'm a good casting director because I've done all those other things.
Right.
You know, because I, you know, I don't know if I was very good at auditioning when I was an actor. You know, sometimes it would click and sometimes it wouldn't. And sometimes I'd be okay about it and sometimes I wouldn't. And I think probably looking back on that, it was the amount of response and care in the room from the people behind the table that probably kind of guided you through that process. And you know, all joking apart, when I met Harold Prince, he was very charming. And I will remember forever him saying, you can't play this role yet because you don't have enough life experience and you're too young and you've got all the potential to play it another time. So thank you. It's been a pleasure to meet you. Go away and be a stronger, more experienced, better person and actor, and I'll meet you again another day. And you kind of go gutted at some level, but also, you know what? That's a grown-up response, and thanks very much, you know. And so the important thing, I think, really, as a casting director, is to allow your actors, when they come in, to be themselves, be professional, but you still have to guide them. You still have to be, you have to steer that ship in the room, but give them the freedom to bring something themselves, you know. Apart from anything else, you've got all the practical stuff, like you sort of just alluded to, like, you're up against the clock and the director's got to be somewhere else in half an hour and you're running behind and you don't want to make it feel like you're throwing people in and throwing them out. That does sort of happen sometimes. It sort of becomes unavoidable. But, you know, there's so many parts to the process, and actors, I think, are more aware of it now than certainly I was when I was a young actor, that, you know, 20 brilliant people could come in the room who all potentially could play the role. And actually what I want as a casting director is my creative team to turn to me and say, Andrew, you've done an amazing job. All these people could play it. You know, we're spoilt for choice. We almost don't know which way to go. Doesn't always happen, I hasten to add, but it does kind of happen on occasion. And then, you know, it comes down to who we've cast opposite the role and diversity, which of course is so important, and how you want to represent the play or the TV show, whatever it is. So many things, so many factors are part of that process. And really what I have to do is be diligent and listen to my creatives and then try and guide it towards what they want. If they ask for my opinion in the final stages, I will give it. You know, sometimes I'll know the actor and say, actually, I know this guy would be great because, or actually, you know what, I think this is the strong contender, or whatever, you know. So there's so many facets and so many things that you have to think about. But really my job is to make it an okay, constructive experience for my creatives and my actors who come in. Did I answer that? I don't know.
Yes. Well, there's just so much information, a wealth of information. But, you know, you've been in front of the camera, you've been behind the camera. But, you know, I would argue that your biggest break, I would say, and you'll tell me what you think about it, happened in EastEnders. I mean, quite honestly, because of the pandemic, my wife and I found British shows that we never knew existed. Midsomer Murders, Endeavor. I mean, we are just addicted. Right. And so I have so much respect. It's just all these shows are so different than what we're used to. So what was your experience like, and how did you land that role, and where did that take you?
Well, I mean, you're right. I mean, EastEnders it's funny actually, because in the UK we refer to shows like EastEnders, Coronation Street, Emmerdale as the soaps, but they sit somewhere between, you know, what American execs would really regard as ongoing drama and soaps, because I think daytime soap is 5 days a week, churn it out kind of thing. Right. You know, in the scheduling in the UK, they sit very much in the middle of the evening schedule, and they're very important. You know, drama, they're part of the drama content of the channel. They very much define the brand of the channel a lot of the time. And at the time when I went into EastEnders, which was 1996, I had to remind myself because I thought you were going to ask me that. It was 1996. EastEnders was literally one of the biggest shows on television. Now, you do have to remember, we hadn't quite broken into cable, and British television was still only 4 terrestrial channels. Right. Sky Television was trying to break through, but very few people had it then. And so as a result, upwards of 20 million viewers would watch an episode of EastEnders. We were on 3 nights a week, 3 half-hour episodes. Oh. A BBC half-hour, by the way, which is 28 and a half minutes, right, compared to a commercial channel.
Three different shows? Three different episodes?
Yeah, 3 episodes. Wow. So in effect, you're making a 90-minute movie a week, basically. Yeah. But it was so popular. I mean, I was very blessed to go into it at a time when it was so running away with all the audience and the awards and all the rest of it, and really beating the other shows. And I went in on a very big storyline, a very controversial character, especially for the 90s. I played a gay character who ran off with his sister's bisexual boyfriend, you know, and caused a stir in the tabloids and all of that because of very different attitudes towards what should or shouldn't be on television at 7:30 on a family viewing night, you know. But because of that, I was thrust into the limelight, and how brilliant, but also it was slightly overwhelming. But I got it through my agent. In fact, this is how different television was in those days. I had been doing theatre jobs, and Jonathan McLeish, who I don't know if he's still with us, but he was a great, fat, camp, big blonde hair, big blonde moustache, almost looked like a sort of jolly Viking, you know. He was the head of everything casting at the BBC, and I used to write him a note. Remember, this is pre-email. Right. I used to put my headshot in my envelope and write on my typewriter and sign it on my specially printed headed paper, and just say, hello, I'm Andrew. I'm at the Rep Theatre in Colchester this week, and I'm in a play. I'm sure you can't come, but I just wanted to let you know who I am. And in those days, the BBC used to send us a photo stat reply. Thank you for your letter. We will put you on fire, you know, like the old days. And I was getting those and those. And then on one occasion, when I wrote to him, and this was over a period of a couple of years, he scribbled a note on the bottom and just said, thanks for the continued communication. Hopefully meet you one day. And I was over the moon. I thought, great. And then I got called in by my agent, by Jonathan, for the role of a barman in one episode. And I was very excited because I hadn't really done much drama by then. I'd done a lot of children's television, which was fun, but it was hidden away and not something that people necessarily thought, he's played the pig that built his house with twigs. We must see him for Hamlet, you know. Yes. it wasn't that kind of gig, you know, or much as I loved doing it. And I got called in for this barman role. And then my agent called me and said, they don't want to see you. And I said, what? I'm going to get this role. And she said, no, that they say that there's an ongoing character coming up and your physical resemblance to somebody else in the show is very strong. And they want to see you for that, but it won't be for a while. So I had this nail-biting moment and feeling disappointed of thinking they're never going to see me, but they did. And I went in and I played Martine McCutcheon, who most people know here as the girl in Love Actually, who marries Hugh Grant's character at the end, the secretary part. She had started her career as a 19-year-old in EastEnders, and they wanted an older brother character to come in. And back in the day, I had jet black hair and we looked very similar. And I thought, well, physically, it's good casting. And they sent me a breakdown of the character. No script, just a breakdown of the character. One page. He was born in East London. The family did well. They moved out to Essex. He realized he was gay. He kind of ran away from home. He met a guy. The guy turned out to be violent towards him. He's come back to find his sister. And it was like, oh, okay, well, some elements of that ring true with me. Fortunately, not all of them.
Right.
But I thought, okay. And I went in and I sat down with Jonathan, who was lovely, Corinne Hollingsworth and Jane Harris, who were big BBC female matriarch, BBC drama execs, were on the show in those days. And I guess they charmed me and I charmed them a bit. I didn't read anything. I was there for 15 minutes. They chatted to me. They said, oh, you're lovely. And I said, am I going to read anything? And they said, no, it's fine. And I was offered it by the time I got home. So it was just one of those moments. And I always say to myself, did they take a chance? Yes. But I think Jonathan, if I could strive to be as a casting director like Jonathan, I guess he looked at it and went, he's done his rep. He's got a lot of camera work. He just hasn't done this. I think he's a safe bet. I think we just go for it. And I like to think that I would view resumes in the same way. And you say, you know what? We don't need to get into screen testing and yada, yada. It's like, he's okay. Let's give it a go and see. And of course, the physical resemblance to the existing character will help. And in I went. And then I was in it for 3.5 years. Became famous for it, I suppose, is the right thing to say at the time. You know, got lovely nominations for lots of awards and never won anything, but never mind. And caused a bit of a stir, and then left. And it did lead to some nice opportunities.
That's such a great story, but it's so authentic when you find out how you got the role. And maybe you can take the viewers kind of into the moment and into the reality of, you know, we've seen table reads. But when you talk about 3 shows a week, it's not just here's the script, you show up, you're in character, you're in the clothing, and you start it. Doesn't it? I mean, that's a lot of shows in 1 week, as you pointed out, 90 minutes, almost like a movie every week. So is it memorizing the script, doing a table read, going through it in your dress rehearsal, and then boom, you go shoot it? What does that whole activity look like?
Well, it's interesting because there was no table read. I mean, there was no rehearsal. And, you know, they used to call it rehearse, record, and we used to call it record, because there was never really any rehearsal at all. And, you know, like a movie in those terms, you'd learn it, turn up, walk it through on set, shoot it, done. When the show had started, it was only 2 episodes a week. In fact, I think it had only gone to 3 not long before I joined it. And that's when they scrapped rehearsals. The old timers that had been in the show for 10 years, you know, used to slightly lament, well, we'd come in on a Monday and you'd have breakfast and then you'd walk it through in the rehearsal rooms and then you'd shoot on this day and blah, blah, blah. There was no time for that. So you did just learn it and go on and shoot it. But, you know, I didn't find that very overwhelming. I think partly because I was 24 when I started and terrified and fearless at the same time. You know, when you're younger, you're like, oh, and then I can do this. So I just used to kind of like go for it. You turn up on so as I remember, the outside stuff was built on their own lot up at Elstree, and the interiors were all in stage 1, so everything was right there. There was no location, although it brilliantly looks like a square in East London. It's all back lot, you know, and you know, so you could walk between exteriors and interiors and do a costume change in 10 minutes, and they certainly made use of that. And obviously when you're shooting out to sea, because I can't remember exactly how it went, but I think you shot across 9 episodes. So your blocks of 3 normally had the same director on all of them, but somehow because of exteriors and double banking and all the rest of it and interiors, you'd work across 9. So if you were in a big storyline, you know, I remember poor old Martine's character got run over on New Year's Eve and my character had to have a nervous breakdown as a result. when you're in a big story like that, you know, you've got to picture where you are, and then you're doing the breakdown before you've done the singer get killed and all of this, you know, you have to be kind of like tune into that. But you get on a roll, and, you know, you open that part of your brain, you understand the character more, and you learn how to play it. I think, again, the old adage of the writers start to write for you as much as you start to really work what they're giving to you, and it all meets in the middle, and it becomes your regular, you know, like any job, and you just begin to fall into that groove where you can learn lines very quickly. I was very blessed because although they used to call us, the show is set in the fictional East End, part of the East End of London called Walford, and we were called the Walford Brat Pack because there was kind of my character, Martin's character, Mark Homer, a lovely actor who played my boyfriend, her ex-boyfriend, the bisexual character, Patsy Palmer, who a lot of people, there was this kind of group of us. And as actors, we sort of age ranged between probably about 19 and 25. But we were like the youth element of the show and had some very central stories. And as much as they were fun, and yes, we did get invited to lots of nice things and go out late some nights, everybody took it seriously enough. I don't really ever remember anyone walking on set and really not knowing the lines or being too hungover to do it. You know, people were committed to it because we loved it, I think, and it was a process that everyone really engaged in. So a lot of the time, although yes, it was very busy and you know, time is money. You know, they used to say to you, you know. But we got it done because we enjoyed it. And if you were in a big storyline, you'd shoot 20 scenes a day. And if you weren't in a big storyline, you'd do one scene on a Monday and one scene on a Thursday and have the rest of the week off. So it kind of balanced out. But to conclude, it equipped me with everything I ever needed to work in television, because no other job is ever as fast as that.
Right. The vast experience you had definitely helped you in all realms of it, because you were an actor, casting director, but then you become a director. I mean, when it comes to lines, I am so overwhelmed. Even when I used to teach the high school plays, because if I came on stage, I would say, "Good morning," line. I mean, 2 words. That's about as much as I could do. So I'm just overwhelmed that besides reciting the lines, you have to act the lines. But now you're on the other side of the camera and you're a director. So what are some of the struggles faced by a director? It's you know, you've had so many of these different roles in your career. What are some of those struggles?
Well, I mean, I love that you're presenting it in this way. I mean, I think at some level, I do still feel like a jack of all trades, master of none, because I've been fortunate enough and lucky enough to do a bit of everything, which is wonderful. And I genuinely have had good experiences nearly all the time on jobs. You know, you get the odd problem here and there, but I still feel like I know nothing about any of it, and then take a breath and think, well, actually you do, because you've done quite a lot. I suppose, like any industry, the industry that I'm in, it keeps evolving, and we have to become more tech savvy, and we communicate much more like this, in a way that you know, you used to get a phone call from your agent and go to the church hall on a Monday to do the audition. We can do things in lots of different ways now. So I feel like I'm always chasing to keep up, whichever role I'm doing. But as far as the directing goes, I mean, I've directed more theatre than anything else. And I do love the theatre directing process, because you form a relationship over a 3-4 week period in a rehearsal room, and then you bring the project to the stage, then you let it go, and the actors own it, and you sit at home watching Netflix thinking, oh, there's a show on in Birmingham tonight I directed, you know, which is a nice feeling, because it's like you've empty nested with the play, you know, whatever, which is kind of a good feeling. But to answer your question, I mean, again, I like to think that I'm a sensitive director to actors' needs, because I've been through that process, and I understand that some actors work in a certain way and other actors work in a different way. And you do occasionally find that isn't an issue, because you have an actor saying, well, you know, I won't really know the lines till the last week, because I want to explore the character, and we might, you know, I'll be open to changing the dialogue. Can I improvise? And sometimes you have to say great, and sometimes you have to say no, because you just don't have the time to do that. And, you know, I know a lot of actors, established actors as well, who turn up on day one almost word perfect. and they don't really budge from what you got. I mean, I adored the actor Nigel Hawthorne, and just thought he was wonderful in everything, Madness of King George and all those things. But I had a friend who was in a play with him at the National Theatre, and it was Clandestine Marriage, I think. And he came in on day one, and from the table read or whatever they did, he learned it, he knew it, that's how he was going to play it. And as much as they all adored him, sometimes that was tricky because people then just had to mold what they were doing to what he was going to do. And of course, he was Nigel Hawthorne and he was the central character, and what he was doing was fabulous. But there was that moment where everyone was like, oh, okay, right. So hang on, I wasn't expecting this. So I need to go back and revisit what I was going to do. So you do get those kind of moments, but generally in theatre, it's a growing process that you all share. And Mike Alfred's, the director in London, always says the answer to this is in this room, and it doesn't have to come from me. And I always remember that, because you think, well, actors bring stuff, and
Sure.
I don't overly plan when I'm directing a project, whether it's a one-day shoot on a TV or a short film or a 4 weeks. I don't overly plan. I kind of think I know where we're going, and I let the collaborative process bring it out. But if you cast it well, dare I say, I'll use a good casting director, you're at least 50% there,
right,
because your actors are going to deliver and they're going to do it, and the show starts to direct itself because you've got your casting right.
This reminds me of years ago. I heard on the radio some businessman talk about, someone called in and said, I want to open a pizzeria. What should I do? We said, do you know how to bust a table and to wait a table to take orders? No, you don't open that up until you've bust the table, wait a table, taken the order, made the pizza. And I would say that yours is the real, I think, the genesis of your career is really mixing all these things that you've done and experience you had that makes it more authentic and makes it, I don't want to say easy for you, but makes it more impactful because you have all this life experience in front of the camera, behind the camera. So I have to ask you, what is next for Andrew Lynford? Like, there needs to be something next, but what's next for you?
Well, right now, this minute, it's funny, isn't it? Because I think everyone feels that they're at some kind of life junction because of pandemic and what's been happening in recent times. If you're watching this way into the future, we're talking about this when we're still fathoming our way out, hopefully out of the COVID pandemic. And my reality is I don't quite know which way to go at the moment. I have some casting projects, which, by the way, I do some from here for London, some smaller projects, some off West End theatre I'm doing at the moment. I've been asked to cast a workshop for the Wallace Annenberg, which is coming up in April, and I've said yes to that. So I continue as a freelancer, but I feel like maybe for me, I'd like to just push back into being attached to a longer project if it's going to be casting. But I continue to write as well. I mean, I keep spinning every plate. And I wrote a play which had a reading in London 2 years ago, and a small theatre wants to do it as a tryout, as part of a comedy season. And so I might get over to London to do that. So to answer your question, what next? I don't know exactly, but I continue to hope that I've been around long enough and know enough people here and over there that things will come up. I just hope that whatever it is something that feels right for now and helps everyone sort of continue to, like I say, move out of this pandemic without fear. You want to get onto a project and know you're going to rehearse it, open it, and it's going to play without this fear of everything falling apart. And that would be a nice thing to experience, whatever it might be. But listen, as I've always been, rightly or wrongly, I'm just open to the next thing being the next thing and hopefully the right thing.
That's great. Well, you're able to pivot so easily because of your experiences. Andrew Lynford, thanks so much for being with us on Lighting the Educational Flame. Catch us Monday nights at 9 p.m. EST on E360 TV, on Roku and Apple TV and Amazon Fire. Remember, we're available 24/7 on the Lighting the Educational Flame YouTube channel. Have a great day, everyone. And Andrew Lynford, thank you so much for being here.
You did that so well. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure.
Thank you for watching Lighting the Educational Flame. To contact Mark Hoberman, email him at info@gradesuccess.com or visit him on social media through Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Thank you for watching Lighting the Educational Flame.